got that. I'm going to say a few things, and then Michelle, if you want to add a few words at the end, that would be great. So, I want to give you a quick rundown on, we had a meeting on October 24th at the Hudson River Foundation, really well attended. It started with a presentation from the Harbor Coalition about what they were up to and what they're trying to do. We asked for a draft of the Harbor Act that they're proposing. We eventually got a draft resolution that Senator Gillibrand's office is working on, and I'll come back to that at the end. Anyway, we heard a bit about that. We had a presentation on the North Shore of Staten Island, which is a really interesting stretch of waterfront. We're going to try and do that at all of our meetings, focus in on a different part of the estuary. But this was really enlightening. We heard about a greenway movement to create a greenway along the North Shore from the Staten Island Ferry over to Mariners Marsh, where the container port is. And we also heard from another group that's really concerned about environmental issues and the neighborhoods that directly abut all of these industrial sites and what the consequences of that are. So that was a great couple of presentations. We talked a little bit about the stewardship and public access grants, and we would really like to accelerate the timing on those so that the money, the small amount of money that's available, I think it was about $60,000 last year, in this next year will become available at the start of the summer rather than the end of the summer, which is the way it works now. So that people would apply this winter for those grants and have the money before the outdoor season really starts. Ideally, we're hoping for May, something like that. We then had a presentation on the East River Blueway, which is a really interesting project about the East River in lower Manhattan. And the reason that we wanted to have that presentation was to highlight some new ideas for creating a soft edge in places that have always been really hard edged. And this proposal does include a couple of spots with those kinds of, at least schematic drawings and ideas. And we wanted to get that on the table, and we think that's something that's a sort of a long-term issue, but how do we, I mean, just to put it bluntly, how do we use fill in environmentally friendly ways, and are there opportunities there? I think a lot of, at least from the CAC perspective, there's really a lot of interest in that. So we'd like to keep pushing on that. And then finally, we talked about a water quality. We apparently have some money to run a water quality workshop or summit or town meeting of some kind, and citizens' water quality monitoring is a really, we think it's got a lot of potential. There's some great programs really based around riverkeepers, following riverkeepers' lead on this, but there are a lot of things happening in a lot of places. So trying to bring all those groups together, understand what other groups are doing, and create a common source of information for the public is one of our goals too. So that was our meeting in October. Then about a week later, we had this storm, and so everything changed. But I guess what I'm here today to say is that we hope that not everything has changed, and that from our perspective, the things that we're interested in, and just to highlight two in particular, those would be water quality and public access. And those are two things that for a lot of CAC members really mean a lot. And we don't want to see those things get lost in the shuffle or moved down the list of priorities. There's a great op-ed in the Times about public access and the relationship between coastal development, which is essentially about selling access to the coast or privatizing it or commercializing it, and how that's, how that really led to the incredible amount of damage that we sustained in this storm. And so we want to keep public access on the front burner. That's what we're interested in on our side, and the same thing with water quality. So that's one of our post-storm notes. A second one is to try and see if this group, if HEP can really, I mean, I know the idea is that this is the central clearinghouse and we're the convener of influence, but now that we've got this big climate change issue on the table, can we stay in that position, and maybe that means inviting some new players. Maybe we're talking about one of our members suggested Sean Donovan, suggested that on the federal level, on the city of New York level, the EDC maybe ought to be represented here, since those guys are going to be involved in a lot of climate change preparation or planning post-storm. So maybe expanding the membership of this group a little bit in those ways. Okay, and then the last thing I want to come back to is this, I said at the beginning we had a presentation from the Harbor Coalition and they have this draft resolution. And I just want to read you, I've got to bring up the text here, it'll take me one sec, but I want to read you from this draft resolution, just the very end of it. And there's a lot of lists of whereases, and I'll just read you the last two. Because they were cause for concern and comment from our members. Whereas the Hudson Raritan Estuary Comprehensive Restoration Plan, the City of New York's Vision 2020, New York City Comprehensive Waterfront Plan, and other regional plans provide a shared vision for ecosystem restoration, sustainable waterfront development, shoreline protection, and land conservation in and around the harbor, and were developed through decades of public and stakeholder investment. So that's one whereas. And then the very next whereas says, whereas the harbor lacks a comprehensive federal program to implement the shared vision for America's harbor outlined in the aforementioned plans, now therefore be it resolved, and then it goes on to call for Congress to recognize the extraordinary importance of all the rest of that. But we felt those two whereases were really in conflict, or there is a feeling among our group that those two things are in conflict, and that we do have the plan. It's there. It's already, we worked on it for years and years, and that's the thing that we should be pushing. Well, that's the thing that this group should be pushing for funding, and now we think now is the time to really make that argument. So that's all I've got. Michelle, I know you wanted to add a couple of things. Let me get the microphone down low so you can speak. So go ahead.
Thank you. We just also brought up at CAC that we're looking for a little bit of immediate guidance today from the management committee on the priorities. That Bob mentioned the budget process is beginning, and he sent out a pretty specific timeline. Normally, we give the CAC committee members an opportunity to initiate proposals through CAC for the budget. And there's been a sense the last couple of years that CAC needs to have a pretty clear idea of the priorities so that people are not using valuable time to think of things and initiate proposals that may not be consistent with where the management committee is going for that year. So there's a sense of needing some immediate feedback from you folks so that we can have our committee be prepared for the budget deadlines that Bob has laid out. So Rob, if you can sort of get a sense of them, since I'm not there, of what they're concerned about as far as priorities, would be very helpful today, since we have to get this to our committee before the holidays. The other thing is, and I say this with a lot of respect, that if the management committee can come up today with a 213 calendar that defines when the meetings are being held in New York and then when they're going to be held in New Jersey. There are people that have travel constrictions, and if they have the calendar, they can plan their travel accordingly for the year so that they can participate in whatever state that is involved. The Port Authority has a room that is able, and I mean, in New Jersey there are places that are accessible to transportation that can host both the policy and the management committee as well as CAC. That's all. Thank you very much, and if I don't get a chance to speak with you folks the rest of the meeting, I wish all of you in this time of holiday and family a very happy holiday and Happy New Year.